everybody. Welcome to the Ada and Archibald MacLeish Field Station. My name is Paul Weztel and I'm the manager of the field station, and I'm glad you're here. Today we're going to do a virtual tour of the field station so that you get an idea of what's here. And then when we can easily travel and we don't have COVID-19 over our heads, you can come out and see some of the things that we're going to show you in person. Hi everybody. We just took a short walk from the parking area along the Welcome Trail, and it brought us to this bluff. It's a good spot for me to just introduce you to the history of the field station. It wasn't until the 1970s that the college purchased property here, and the reason they wanted property this far away from campus is because they had just built Wright Hall in the late 60s, and where Wright Hall sat on campus there was an observatory, and it was really common for small liberal arts schools to have observatories, and so they were looking for a place to replace that observatory, and so they came out here and they purchased a lot of property for just a small portion that they were going to use as an observatory. And so that was in the 70s, and so except for the use as an observatory, this property wasn't really used very much until about 2005, when it was named the Ada and Archibald MacLeish Field Station, and this name was given to this piece of property by Jill Kerr Conway, who was a former president of the college in the 1970s. And when she lived here, her friends, Ada and Archibald MacLeish, were instrumental in introducing her to Western Massachusetts, and they were very good friends. And so she made a donation to the college and was able to name this property after her friends. Right now, after naming it and deciding that, hey, this is a good resource for students and faculty and even the general public, it's slowly formed into a field station that has multiple uses. And I want to emphasize that it's actually not just a science field station, but a liberal arts field station. So it has multiple uses that can be enjoyed by people of all disciplines. So one of the main, the main building at the field station is the Weztel Classroom building. And this building is a small 2,200 square feet building, and it contains an activity room and a dry lab and some restrooms. And when you look at it, it has a metal roof and it has cedar siding, and it looks like a nice, pretty standard building. But what's really the most interesting thing about this building is that it was designed and built with the Living Building Challenge in mind. And what the Living Building Challenge is an architectural challenge where you design a building that generates its own power, cleans its own water, is built in such a way that makes people want to be in it and feel good about being in it, so it doesn't create, it doesn't have a toxic indoor environment, and it just generally is a positive, has a positive impact on the environment rather than always needing extra resources like many other buildings that are built. So the college did take this Living Building Challenge, and the building was built in 2012, and then they had to go through at least a year-long certification process to have the building certified, and they did that, and this was the 5th certified living building in the world. So we're pretty proud of it. It's a very comfortable building. And you can see in the background here are the solar panels that are powering the building. And so I just want to take you in. We'll have a look around the inside, but I wanted you to see the outside just to get a sense of it. So let's take a look and walk inside. Come on. So here we are in the classroom building. Why don't you take a look around, just get a sense of the room. This is the multi-purpose room. This room is used for a lot of meetings. It's used for picnics people have up here. Sometimes athletic teams come up here and share a meal. There's retreats. I've had student groups come up. I've also had students, just say during exam period, they come up and study here. So there's all sorts of things. You can, students can reserve this building and use it for school purposes. So the only thing you can't do is you can't sleep in this building. That's the one thing. Another feature, besides the triple paned windows and the insulation that's this thick and all sorts of things, is that we have composting toilets. Because composting toilets, they reduce water use and we can use the compost. There's nothing wrong with compost. So I just point this out. Works pretty well. Most people do just quite fine there. No one's fallen in. We also have, aside from that multi-purpose room, we have a dry lab. And by dry lab, I mean it's got lab benches and we have microscopes. There's just no wet chemistry that's done here unless you bring all the supplies in. But this is another place where classes can meet after they've been sampling out at MacLeish, or individual students. I've had individual students doing senior projects or class projects, and they set up in this room and create a working space for themselves. So we've just come a short distance from the classroom building, and we're at the fire pit. And this fire pit is used by all kinds of either houses, student houses, or student groups, or like I said, athletic teams. They come here and they just have a fun time. And so it's one of the features of the field station, and you reserve it by contacting me, Paul Weztel. And one of the best parts about this fire pit is that we have the best view in the station of the Holyoke Range Mountains. So that's looking off towards Amherst. It's just a great view. I mentioned that that students do a lot of things at the field station. You might be saying, well, what can I do? One thing that students did is they made this wood shed. The wood shed, we provide all the supplies for your campfire, wood, matches, and kindling. And the students made this wood shed in the art department wood shop, and then we loaded it on a truck and assembled it out here. So it's just one example of what students do, and they did a really good job. So, and of course, then you have dry firewood. All right, so some of you might be familiar with field stations and thinking, oh, that's just for science people, right? That only scientists go to field stations so that they can study the environment. But it's not true. Here at MacLeish Field Station, we run a liberal arts field station, and we try to blend the arts and the sciences together. And we actually think very much that each discipline, the arts and the sciences, are better for working together. And each group has better has better insights. So so this is one of our. We have several artists who've worked at the field station, and I've had several students who are art majors work here. And this one, we have a resident artist whose name is Dan Ladd, and he has spent the last 6 years creating this arch, these arches. And he's taken these London plane trees and he's bent them over, planted one on each side and bent them over and twisted them together. And you can see this is like a bandshell arch. It's living and it's made from these London plane trees. And it gives you a little bit of shade, and you can sit here and think about you know, what's going on around you and be shaded by the living trees. So the field station hosts a programmatic group called Arts Afield, and the purpose of Arts Afield is to bring art out to the field station. And so this group has brought, we've had student projects, so their year-end presentation, so they've in dance, they've been out here. We've had other artists that are, you know, professional artists. They've done projects out here. We've had poetry readings here. We've had theater classes come out and do their projects here. So if you should think of the field station as a place where you can create and you can use your imagination and use the backdrop or the materials of what you would find in nature for your project. So right now we're in the Chestnut Restoration Orchard. So let me tell you a little bit of background about the American chestnut, and then I'll tell you about what this place is and what role it's having in one of the biggest conservation programs in the United States, and that is the effort to create a hybrid chestnut that is blight resistant. So if you came to this area 150 years ago and were walking around in the forest, about every fourth tree you would encounter would have been an American chestnut. And now if you come into the forest, you won't see American chestnuts anymore. So what happened to them? Well, you had this tree, very common tree, grew in the forest from Maine to northern Georgia and northern Mississippi. It produced lots and lots of nuts, chestnuts. It grew fast, and the wood could be used for a variety of uses. So people ate the chestnuts, wildlife ate the chestnuts, people used the wood to build houses, to build fences, to build furniture, to panel their walls. And it was a tremendously important tree, and there was a whole culture around it. So about 1904, collectors brought a cousin of the American chestnut, the Chinese chestnut, from China to, initially it's believed, to New York City. And they brought it over there so they could grow it here and it would be in their collections. And not only did the Chinese chestnut come, but also a fungus that the Chinese chestnut, that lives with the Chinese chestnut, came with it. And that was a fungus, a pathogenic fungus, that American chestnuts had never seen. And so that fungus started to spread. It jumped and spread across all the American chestnuts in New York City and onward. And within 50 years, virtually all the American chestnuts were dead. That is estimated to have been 4 billion trees died within 50 years. And so the American chestnut became functionally, or essentially ecologically extinct. There is a group called the American Chestnut Foundation, and they're trying to create a hybrid chestnut that is, they've crossed with the Chinese chestnut. They've taken Americans that are still surviving, there's a few, and they've crossed it with the Chinese chestnut to create a hybrid that would be resistant. But there's 9 genes that contribute to the resistance to the fungal blight, and it's a very difficult process. So what's happening here in this seed orchard is we're teaming up with the American Chestnut Foundation, and we've put this in, and we've taken seeds from 20 different lines of American that have American parents and Chinese parents, and we've planted them out. And then what we do, we planted them really close. They were 1 foot apart. And then what we do is we, when they get old enough, we challenge them with the blight, and we see if we have a tree that's resistant. So we just walked to the other side of the chestnut orchard, and this is the first of 2 campsites at the field station. And students, if you sign up and reserve the campsites, you're welcome to come here and camp. And so that is when we're not under COVID pandemic restrictions. And so they're both primitive sites, and they have a table, they have a fire pit, and this particular campsite has a lean-to. So you can see that if you're friendly, you can sleep, again, not during the pandemic, but you could sleep 8 or 9 people there, and you don't even have to bring a tent. So you have to make your own latrine, you have to bring your own water and food, of course, but it's a peaceful place, and it's not too far from the parking area. Hello everybody, we're at the challenge course at MacLeish. I'm standing on the whale watch, an element called the whale watch, and the whole idea is that you would normally come to the challenge course with a group of 8 to 13 people, and they would all be on here and you would be balancing as a group, because the challenge course is designed to teach teamwork and to help people get to know each other and work as teams. And that's why a lot of, again, house groups or student organizations or athletic groups, they come out here. I've even taken some classes out here on their first day. They come out here so that they get to know each other and know that they're going to have to work as a team. So on this whale watch, here I am trying to balance my way while I talk to you, but it's a lot of fun. In order to be on the challenge course, you call up Stephanie Frazee, again, in non-pandemic times, and you have to come reserve a time here, and she will come out and be your facilitator and help you through the challenge course and help you have a good time. So we hope to see you out here sometime. So I've mentioned this before, but at MacLeish there's a lot of opportunity to do independent projects, science-related, environmental science-related projects. And this is just an example of a research site. Happens to be the site from someone who works at University of Massachusetts Amherst, and they use this area for one of their sites. But we have over 9 researchers with apparatus and field plots out here at MacLeish. And I just want to encourage you to, if you're interested, if that's your interest, doing outdoor ecology or geology or bird surveys, whatever it is, amphibian studies, you should definitely contact me, talk to someone who will be your mentor and advisor, and it might make a good senior independent study or a junior independent study. So there's a lot of opportunities out here. Hi everybody! I just wanted to show you that we have resources to support projects, that student and faculty projects that are out at MacLeish. And we have 2 weather stations. This is called Orchard Met, and it's a standard weather station. We measure temperature and relative humidity and photosynthetically active radiation. And we also measure soil moisture and soil temperature. So take advantage of these resources. Think of a project that you'd like to do out at MacLeish that would bring you outside and into the great outdoors, and realize that we have these resources to support those projects.